What's going on, guys? We are here live in Louisville for Double Axis Podcast Edition 6. Today I am overwhelmed to have my friend Jerry Tyrrell on the podcast. Going to talk about all kinds of stuff, probably more than we should at times, but we'll see how it goes.
Probably so.
So, Jerry, I met through work. We've become really good friends. We talk almost on the phone on an everyday basis. And he's got a lot of exciting stuff going on in his life. But first kind of wanted to dial it back a little bit and talk about the differences in our upbringing. I was born in a small town in Winchester, and here's Jerry born in the giant metropolis of Louisville.
Oh, giant metropolis is stretching it, but yeah. Born in downtown Louisville.
Listen here, bro. If you got more than an Applebee's in your town, you're cooking.
Doing pretty good.
You're cooking.
Good.
I mean, we didn't even get a Walmart Supercenter until I was almost in high school.
Well, I wouldn't. Back in the day, we didn't. We had Dairy Queen and McDonald's. We were living the high life downtown. Other than that, you don't have any grocery stores.
So, but
any of that stuff, and none of that stuff's around.
But if you jumped out of downtown, there's probably everything, right?
Well, yeah. But normally, people who live down there, they don't venture out.
Okay.
They don't venture out.
I've heard your childhood friends refer to Portland.
Portland, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, to somebody that's not familiar with Louisville,
mm-hmm.
What is that? Is that a subdivision, or is it?
Well, I guess it's probably. I don't know the history of Portland.
No. I don't want the history.
No, I get it.
I don't want the history. I'm not looking for the history.
It's just a dense, populated urban area with a lot of residential.
It's close to downtown.
It's close to downtown.
Okay.
It is downtown.
In relation to where we are right now, this is the eastern side of
It's
Louisville?
like 10 miles west.
Okay, 10 miles west.
So yeah, it's 10 miles
so
west.
you
I haven't
through
ventured very
downtown.
far.
You go through downtown. And
yeah.
Well, 10 miles is big. I mean, I don't think I've moved 10 miles from my childhood.
Really?
Oh, no.
You're still within that same
I would say, yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
The only time I've ever left was when I lived in Owensboro and Florence, but the rest of my life has been around Winchester.
You know it amazes me that most people live their lives within a small bubble, just like you, just not like you.
We
but,
call
but just within not at all, not at all. I'm just saying that just speaks to people's nature about not wanting change or anything like that. They just kind of stay with what's comfortable and how well they feel insulated.
Well, we call it the boomerang effect in Winchester because a lot of people seem to leave, but they just come back.
They come back.
But see, and
that's okay. That's okay to go out there and venture and get those experiences and come back home.
Somebody that used to be very close to me told me I was crazy because when I moved back to Winchester, I was a little bit younger and had a little bit more fire.
I remember when you moved back, yes.
But I really wanted to try to do something to make a difference in the hometown because I have family members, I have friends that they're kind of spinning their wheels, and that's one of the reasons I'm doing this is because I feel like it could be a catalyst to show how people like myself and like you are trying to do different things in their lives to better the people around them. I used to think it would take some broad strokes, but I really feel like it's that simple. It's kind of like the 3 feet around you. You're affecting that. You make changes in people's lives, and they're like, you're crazy, and you'll never be able to do anything like that. And I probably couldn't back then.
Right.
But, I just want to be able to, try to change the people around me and to make a positive domino effect. Yeah. And I feel like that's one of the best parts about this podcast. So the boomerang effect can be negative if you come back and you're not trying to change anything.
Right.
But,
you're absolutely right.
I wanted to come back. My grandparents are still alive and everything. So coming back and being around them, having my children around them was important to me. But at the same time, I want better things for Winchester, and I see the potential in so many people. So
that's good. That's good.
But back to your life.
Oh, yes.
Okay, yes. So were you born in Portland? Grew up in Portland? Part of Louisville?
I grew up there. To say I grew up there is kind of a stretch because I lived there until I was probably about 7 years old. I have very vague memories. It was but the memories I do have, weren't the best.
Okay, so
but
explain that to me and define that. What do you mean?
Like weren't the best?
Yes. So
well,
was it crime or was it
no,
just a downtrodden area?
No, it had nothing to do with the surroundings. It had to do with kind of like the immediate family.
Okay.
You know, it was just like we were just poor, didn't have a lot of money. Water got shut off, electricity got shut off on a regular basis. You know, I remember having to carry buckets of water from the next door neighbor's house to put in the bathtub, take a bath, that type of stuff. But we moved out of there. When we moved out of there to the south end, it got a little bit better. It was still kind of crazy.
So you moved up to the big time from there.
We moved up to the big time to the south end. Yeah.
So, and these memories remain with you from 7 and younger. So you still remember all those
vaguely.
things?
It's
vague, like.
I can barely remember.
Like a foggy haze or something like that.
All my memories of foggy haze. Even what happened yesterday was kind of like a foggy haze. I'm just focused on, kind of the here and now. Yeah.
So you moved to the south end, and I assume that it, like you said, it's a little bit better neighborhood and everything like that.
A little bit, yeah. Of course, it was a little bit better neighborhood. I've slowly worked my way around the city from the west end to the south end.
So now you're the east end.
Back into the east end. But yeah.
How long did you live there? Would you consider yourself actually growing up there?
Growing up there,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so did you graduate from that same area?
I did.
High school
I graduated. We moved away for a little while when I was in late elementary, early middle school. We moved to actually Georgia, and it was probably one of the best times of our lives because it was good. It was a good time.
How long was that?
Just like 3 years.
Well, that's a pretty big chunk. So how old were you when you moved to Georgia? Because I don't remember this fact.
Well, yeah, I was probably like the late 4th grade, 5th grade. Well, maybe it was the 5th, 6th, and part of 7th. So I don't know how old are you in the 7th grade? Like
probably 10 to 12.
13, 14.
I'll think 13, 14 is probably 8th grade, 9th grade.
No, 9th grade is like 15 or 16, right? I could be wrong. I know.
I got my license. I got my license junior year, so I was 16.
I didn't get my license until I graduated high school. So, yeah. So that's
Okay, so you move away to Georgia, and you come. What made that better as far as what you were saying earlier? It was the best time of your lives.
Just family life. Whenever I refer to a good time in my life or a bad time, it had nothing to do.
Did you live in the city in Georgia too?
Yeah, it had nothing to do with like my surroundings or apartment or house or whatever. It all had to do with how well the family was kind of getting along and everything.
So
everybody was driving.
But it was still an urban area though?
No, I would consider that we were in the suburbs then.
Gotcha.
We were in the suburbs then.
Gotcha.
But
so you moved back and you finished
apartment life.
All the time? Never a house?
Very rarely a house. And if we did, it was renting. We rented a house.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you came back and I assume you graduated from here?
Graduated from here, yeah.
So what was the high school Jerry Tyrrell like?
A smart ass.
Well, that's hasn't changed.
A bit of an ass.
So you're the same person. You didn't evolve.
Pretty much. I had like probably just a core group of friends that I actually hung out with, and and those are probably still the same people I talk to.
So
till now,
like my high school life was pretty much, I guess, defined by sports. So what would you define yours as? Was it comics or drawing or? Because I know that those are talents that you have.
Yeah, I think that was probably more along my middle school years and early high school years, and then once I got to like knowing people and got to feel comfortable around my friends, it was all downhill from there. My grades went south, and it was just we always kind of drank and partied and just ran the streets.
Even in high school, Jerry Tyrrell was a party animal.
Yeah, even in high school, but no longer. Jerry Tyrrell is a suburban dad now. So
yeah, you definitely got the dad life going on.
So thanks.
When you say run the streets, do you mean like? Because when I picture Louisville, and I'd say a lot of the people listening, especially from like my area, they're like, "Oh, he's downtown."
Oh, it's not like gang banging, and no. I wasn't approached by the Crips.
It was more like it was more like the Sandlot then.
It was more like hooligan, absolutely, yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. Like I've never really seen the Sandlot.
Oh my God.
although kids from your generation talk about that movie like it's
us kids,
like it's something
kids
great
from the '80s, crack babies.
I can't. I'm trying to think of a movie that would equate to the Sandlot. Like Stand By Me. Stand By Me would equate to the Sandlot, I think.
But that was more. See, I'm trying to picture it in my mind because Stand By Me was still country life. Because they were running around poking dead potties on
well, this is true.
on train tracks out in the middle of open country.
Well, maybe Boys in the Hood.
It's probably somewhere between the Sandlot and Boys in the Hood. Somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
Somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle. Well, that clears it up. I'm glad you did.
Yeah. No, when I say run the streets, we just we hung out. We weren't terrible. We weren't breaking any laws, but we were definitely not attending.
So what year was this?
Probably early '90s.
Early '90s.
Yeah.
And so
it seems just like yesterday to say the early.
So
90s,
you said that there's really nothing that defined you, but like, did you latch on to music or art or as far as personally, like I said, mine was sports. My room was full of posters of Griffey and Troy Aikman.
Okay, well, around that time, me and my brother shared a room, and when you walked in this room,
which brother?
Thomas. Yeah.
Okay.
When we shared a room, you could tell whose side of the room was whose. Because at this time, I was really kind of, I guess, into music, or even maybe just pissing him off. He would have Michael Jordan posters, and Rex Chapman, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson was his guy back in the day. And then I would have Metallica, Megadeth, I had like heavy metal posters. Just
so heavy metal.
And I probably wouldn't
For
have
some
those
reason,
up.
I thought that we had talked about old school rap before. So
Absolutely,
I pictured you more as like an Eazy-E and the Notorious B.I.G.
No.
So,
I mainly
did
this to make him mad. It's not that I was really into those bands. I like their music, but it was more to.
We still haven't defined Jerry Tyrrell around this time period, though.
There is no definition.
There's no definition.
There is no definition.
So you're a chameleon.
It's very fluid.
You're a chameleon.
Very adaptable to the situation.
So you just did what you thought was cool, basically.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just doing my own thing.
Leaving out of high school, going into the post-high school days, did you go right into the workforce? Did you try school?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. When I graduated high school, I was like terrified and had no clue what to do. So I got a job and started working.
What was your first job outside of high school? Was it always in
automotive? Yeah.
Automotive industry.
Yeah.
So straight
up washing cars. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did that in high school.
Did you?
Yeah. Did you?
I waited till I got a job.
Did you get the sand and all that stuff too?
No.
Just straight washing cars.
Just straight up washing cars
for like a dealership or?
Yeah. Dealership. Yeah.
I know that the automotive industry is kind of bigger here with Ford, and I believe you have family members who work there. So that was never a route that you wanted to go with.
I tried to go that route. I worked at a Ford dealer, and I really did try to go that route by meeting people who worked there and trying to put in good words. Took the ASVAB test for them.
They have an ASVAB for Ford?
Oh yeah.
Straight up military up in there.
Yeah, you have to take a test for it, and I think I made it through the second round, and
then the smart ass kicked in.
No. I didn't even get selected for an interview or anything like that, and thank goodness I didn't, because I'd still be there probably slaving away.
Okay, so
10 hours a day.
I guess the modern Jerry Tyrrell that I know, as far as your personality and kind of. I feel like you're more of an outgoing person. You're you definitely know what you're talking about when you're speaking about things. So do you feel like that straight out of high school going for Ford, that personality hadn't developed to the point where you had the confidence in yourself?
Honestly, and this is a secret between you and me, don't tell nobody, but I'm actually more of an introvert. I'm only more of the outspoken person,
but I wouldn't
people that I'm covered.
But I wouldn't consider you that way in a business setting. How does that sound better?
That does sound right.
Okay.
That does sound right. Because I'll say this: I'm an introverted person with a strong opinion, and I'm a person who likes my opinion.
Right.
And I'm going to force my opinion. I'm going to force my opinion upon you until you agree with me.
Let's not yell at each other before we get to fantasy football. Okay.
Right.
And you can yell at me about all that stuff. Okay. So you go out for Ford and everything like that. So I'm pretty much going to give you the floor of what you want to talk about from your high school days to, getting hired on with the company that we work for now. So what developed that Jerry Tyrrell? What defined that? Because it seems at this point in time you really don't have, any definition.
Any clear definition?
Yeah.
You know what? I've never really even thought about it. Now that you're giving me this right off the top of my head, I would say. My kids defined me, because that gave me direction on how to proceed with my life.
Gotcha.
And it was not something that was planned at the time.
So it gave you clarity.
It gave me clarity, absolutely. It gave me focus. It gave me a goal. It gave me drive and my drive from that point was to put my kids in a better position than I had been in. And that's been my number one goal since then.
You didn't ever want your kids to be in a position where they had to carry water when it got shut off.
Right.
So that was what defined Jerry Tyrrell.
Correct.
Gotcha.
That's a it's kind of like a revelation that you're just now seeing. I've just never even really thought about it.
Never thought about it.
Yeah, never put two and two together.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about from that era that kind of helped shape and define you?
Well, I mean, we all have our own experiences that that we go through, and I think
our own battles.
We have our own internal battles, external battles that kind of slowly erode or build upon your personality.
I see it more as a compression, like a diamond, as far as more of eroding, because I feel like all of these things kind of compressed and made you define yourself, because life sometimes forces you either that or you get washed away.
That's a good analogy, but what I was kind of referring to when I say eroding and then building upon, you have good interaction, you have bad interactions, and you sometimes in those interactions, in those situations, you realize good things about yourself that you build on. You realize bad things about yourself that you want to erode away. So that's kind of what I mean. Like, you use each individual situation to kind of build into the person that you think is the best you. And that's kind of what I've done. And I don't still think I'm even close to being the person that I think
when you start
be.
Settling on that, that's when.
Yeah. Because I think before we were talking, I was referring to how all people have a bad side to them. And, I don't think you'll ever completely shut the door on those demons.
No, absolutely not. It's more of lassoing them, controlling them, and understanding them. That way you know how to face it in the future.
This is true. Yeah. This is true.
Because too many people put it off or ignore it or, embrace it. And then that's when everything can take over. So I'm going to put you on the spot. I know that you're talking about your children, and I know that at that point in time, like later in your life, you went through a divorce.
Yeah,
so
it was pretty early in the kids.
Okay. Okay. So how old were you when all that stuff happened?
Married at 22, divorced at like 24, 25, 26, something like that. So we were together like 3 or 4 years, something like that.
Okay, so you got your clarity with your children. Mm-hmm. Did the divorce and going through all that, did that alter that? Did it change it? Did it knock you off course? Did it?
No. I mean, it's just been I wouldn't say that it knocked me off course or even give me.
Well, it had to change you.
Well,
it had to change something.
Yeah, it still changes me. I think it still shakes me to this day as far as relationships
and trust and all the things that go with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you're at that point in your life, you're 25, 26, you found your clarity through, having your children, and now you've had, I wouldn't say your life ripped apart, but your life obviously altered by having a divorce.
Right.
And you're still in the automotive business at this point? Yeah. Are you doing what we do now, or are you doing something different?
No, I'm doing something.
So you're still
different. Yeah, I'm still
lower. On the rung.
I'm still low on the rung today.
I know, but don't tell people.
Right.
So did this going through this divorce give you any fire to try to push your way up that ladder? Did it give you?
No, not necessarily. I wouldn't say that. I mean, I had a drive to do a good job at whatever I'm doing. I just, wouldn't say a natural, but I mean, I try to out hustle and outwork you.
Well, it had to be something that was formed in you early in childhood by going through the things that you went through.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
I mean, I would say that would be natural.
I think in early childhood.
So, to me, I can remember back to when I broke up with my high school girlfriend, and during that breakup, I didn't use it for anything good. I just used it to get
for bad.
I used it to get in really good shape. I started working out, and that was kind of my goal at that point in time. So I didn't know if there was some type of goal in your career that you kind of wanted. I think that every man and probably every woman as well, when they have a breakup or some type of divorce, that they use it to try to get back at that person almost. I was like, I'm gonna get in really good shape, and I'm gonna get a bunch of girlfriends, and I'm gonna throw it in their face. Of course, I was a kid then.
Yeah, and I've been through breakups since then, and I've done that same thing where I've focused all my energy on getting, eating right, working out, putting my.
But never in a career pathway.
never in a career pathway.
You
No,
already had
'cause I think
you already had a goal in mind.
no, honestly,
Not really?
I've never had really a goal in mind when it comes to a career. I've just kind of
Took the opportunities that came to
just
you.
yeah, I've just kind of just let it flow. Absolutely,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay, so take me into those years between the divorce and between your current career path. Is
That's
there
a long
any?
year. That's a lot of years.
It's like 4, 5.
For my current career.
Yeah.
Till when?
No. But between the time you had your divorce to
Oh.
where you got the job that we have today.
That's
So
still-
how
that's
did you climb the ladder? Because you said that you're still low on the ladder and you weren't doing what we do now. So
right,
how did
right.
you get to that point?
Well,
did you just work your butt off?
Just by hustling,
Yeah.
and they needed somebody in the shop in the back, and I went back there and I hustled. I worked somebody out of a job and got their job
And
and
move up to the next one.
kind of moved up. Yeah.
So see, once again, I'm coming from different sides of
Yeah.
it because I worked in the restaurant business and I did the hustle thing
Yeah.
up to the top to where I was a manager till I was about to be a general manager.
Right.
But I just got sick and tired of dealing with children all the time. You know, I
Yeah.
was 17, 18 years old, but
Right.
at that point in time, I didn't party. I didn't do anything like that.
Being responsible.
Well, I don't know about responsible. I obviously wasn't saving any money for
Yeah.
them, and I was making pretty good money.
Yeah.
But I had worked my way up, and they were about to give me my own restaurant, but it just wasn't something that I was interested in.
Right.
So opposite of you, for me to get into automotive business, it was something that was family. My
Yeah.
uncles did it, my dad did it. Everybody knew my last name in that business, and so
Right.
I
It's just
basically got the job
based off of them.
we kind of came off.
Right.
But I still applied everything that I had learned in the restaurant business as far as working towards that.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't feel like that I didn't have any clarity either. I was just kind of taking what was the best thing, and at that point in time, I knew that I wanted to get out of the restaurant business and go into something else.
I got you. So at that point, I was working with my manager, and he kind of took me underneath his wing and
Gotcha.
showed me
So
the ropes.
you did enough to get noticed by him to where he was going to bring you in and do that.
Absolutely. So he brought me in, showed me everything, and then by working that position, I got to know other people that would come into our shop, and I developed relationships with them, and they encouraged me to continue to push myself to possibly fill out for a job at the place that they worked. A couple times they did that, I passed on it. I just knew I wasn't ready for
Right.
that jump.
That's
And then-
pretty good wisdom there applied at that age.
well, I knew that I wasn't. I looked at them as mature, which they probably weren't.
Probably not.
But from my perspective, it looked like they had their things together and they were mature.
Right.
But 20 years later, looking back, they were just a little bit younger than I am now, and I don't know everything now, and I still feel uneasy about things at times. So I'm sure that they felt the same way. But anyway,
Absolutely.
I looked at them. I looked up to them, and I knew that I wasn't ready for that. But eventually I came around when I was ready to take that next step.
Gotcha. So you finally you had the confidence in yourself to go ahead and take that next step.
Mm-hmm.
And did you apply other places than where we work now, or
Nope.
was it just
Nope.
one?
That was it.
one hit
I didn't want to work anywhere else.
Okay, and so the job that you took was for the Louisville area,
Yeah.
right away.
Mhm. Yeah. Yep.
So once again, that's kind of different for me because there was an opening, but it was across the state of Kentucky in
Yeah.
Owensboro.
Oh, I know it. I remember
So
that. Yeah.
I kind of, once again, I was trying to better my life in that current situation, taking what was in front of me, even though
Even though you
I
had
really
that
didn't want to.
sacrifice.
And
to
I
do
actually
it.
thought I was going to have to go to Memphis. A lot of people don't know that.
Wow.
So I thought I was going to have to go to Memphis,
Wow.
and instead I ended up in Owensboro, which thank God I did because I eventually.
I could not imagine the culture shock that you would have felt going to Memphis.
Yeah, it would probably been the same thing with me working in Louisville.
No, I don't. You only hear stories, but I heard Memphis was pretty.
Yeah, from Memphis.
From Memphis. That's absolutely right.
So,
absolutely right, Mr. Memphis.
No, you get hired on, and I'm
Yeah.
a year or two behind you.
Just a year. Yeah,
Just
I've been
a year,
there.
just 1
been
year.
10, year 9, right?
So
yeah.
yes, no.
So I was when we first met. I was early into that career.
But we kinda talked about
So
you-
you met me as I took that step.
But at this point, we talk about you kind of always being 10 years ahead of me in your
Sure.
life.
Yep.
And so you were probably 31 at the time?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was
Maybe 32.
21 at the time when I
Yeah.
got hired on.
Yeah.
So we were
Yeah.
obviously a gap there. You get hired on. Was it a shock to you to go from, the shop life to?
No, I don't think so at all.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, I liked the people that I was working with then, and I even like the people that I was working with now.
Do you feel like you were adequately trained to do what you have to do? Did you feel
Absolutely.
like that staying a couple extra years?
Well, I think that the staying a couple extra years was more for maturity. Not for technical, yeah.
Not technical.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
See, I only worked for about a year, before I jumped into the big corporate world.
Yeah, I was 10 years in.
I probably would have perhaps been more suited by waiting, but obviously the things that worked out in my life wouldn't have worked out if I had waited. So,
yeah.
I jumped right into the fire, and I don't feel like that I was trained well enough to do what we do now.
Do you feel like you're trained well enough now?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting replaced with technology, and we're never going to probably match up to that technology. So that's the biggest problem.
So that's the key to life. Find something to do that you're passionate about that you can't be replaced in.
Yeah, but
good luck with that.
I can still be replaced for this even. I mean,
without a doubt.
Yeah, by you're probably going to replace me. Everybody's going to like you more. They're going to be like, can we get more of that Jerry guy?
Yeah, let's get him. Maybe he can be your sidekick.
Yeah, you always were the Robin to my Batman, weren't you?
You'd like to think so.
So, you get hired on. You go through your training process. I get hired on as well. There's nobody out in the area that I'm in, so they bring me here to train to ride along with you as well.
Yep.
So I was telling David on the way here that you always embellish the ride along story.
You say that I embellish it, but I remember it. Like I said, memory's kind of fuzzy and foggy.
You do embellish it.
Well, I remember that you were scared to get out of the car, and we were just down at the Boys and Girls Club. I mean, it wasn't a big deal.
It was exactly in front of the Boys and Girls Club. But you say I was afraid to get out of the car. I told David that you always said that I was scared to get out of the car. But I'm like that everywhere. That's just me. Like, I could go sit down at Winchester Applebee's and I'll scan the room.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But you were.
It's just a problem.
It just seems like you were looking over your shoulder more so.
Well, I watched the first 48 and hear you tell stories. Another guy that we know that works in this area has an app on his phone that tells him where the murders are. I mean, obviously there's something to worry about.
Yeah, I know, but you got to worry about that. You got to worry about that everywhere.
I think.
But as long as you're. How many? Listen, let me ask you this: on those murders, on that app, how many of those people are innocent?
Well,
like innocent bystanders.
When he told me he had the app, it was a mailman that got shot. So I don't think that guy was doing anything.
No, I mean he brings checks.
Unless he was slinging something out of the back of his mail card.
He might have been. You never know.
Yeah, well, poor guy.
You never know.
I think he was probably just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Here's
what
true.
I think happened.
Yeah.
And we've never discussed this. I always let you take the beatings because I get the most of them most of the time anyway. So I got to let you have your wins when you can get them. So I think that it was your intent to psych me out because all the places that we went that day, we had to go several places. That's the only one I can remember. The only thing I remember is you listening to talk radio and you driving like a bat out of hell. That's the only thing I remember. Up to the point where.
Do you not remember what car we looked at or anything like that? No.
I think at the Boys and Girls Club, I think it was a Saturn.
It was an Escort, but yeah, it was close. Yeah, as close.
But the trainer at the time had warned me of your driving before I got in.
Oh, he was full of it.
So I made sure to go ahead and click.
We should always click.
And then,
be safe.
I always do anyway. Yeah. But I was making sure it was tight. I was kind of checking your airbag situation out.
Right. A little creature.
Making sure you wouldn't get whiplash.
And that could be one of the reasons I was looking around too.
That's very possible.
But I think you're trying to psych me out. And I think you knew what you're doing. I think you enjoyed it.
Now, see, I may have subconsciously, but I don't remember intentionally doing it.
Because you talked it up.
I remember us going to look at it was a red Mustang as well. I remember that it just popped in there.
Where was it?
It was in a rural area. It wasn't in a downtown area.
Don't remember it.
Yeah, I remember it.
Don't remember it.
Yeah.
I don't remember that at all. But I just always thought that was so funny because after that, when I left Owensboro after working there for a year, I had to go work in Cincinnati.
Oh, I didn't know you worked in Cincinnati.
Oh, every day.
I hear that's worse.
I had to cross the river into Cincinnati, and there was like a 7-day period where there's 7 murders in 7 days. And I distinctly remember looking at a vehicle and talking to the lady, and somehow it got turned on to the violence in the city for that time.
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh yeah, that mom that got killed while walking her baby was just shot right over there." And I mean, it was a couple hundred yards away, but still, you know, you're looking at this
right
park
there.
and you're like, "This looks like a perfectly fine park." You know,
Like
I
a
would
decent
walk
part
in.
of town.
So, you know, that I just always found that funny because the violence was obviously here, and there was no violence in Owensboro. I mean, there was, but you know what I'm saying, it wasn't like it was here in Louisville. And then I had to go to Cincinnati, which I feel like was on par with Louisville. But I always thought that story was funny.
Actually, Cincinnati's probably a little worse than Louisville. They're more densely populated. It's definitely a bigger city than Louisville.
But
absolutely.
Louisville, you know, I used to be addicted to the first 48, and there's a lot of things about Louisville that stick with me. But I intentionally didn't watch them about Cincinnati when I was going because these were the same streets that I was driving to go look at this guy's car.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're like, oh, you don't want to be in this neighborhood at certain times and things like that. And I never really necessarily bought into that. Maybe I should have.
Oh, yeah.
But I didn't. But I remember making wrong turns and things like that and getting looks like, you know, you're on the wrong side of town. You need to get out of here with that nice Impala for you. But
luckily, I don't have to do those. So somebody else takes care of those now.
What's up?
The cars in those
areas,
crime-ridden areas.
Well, now that you're on YouTube saying this, they're gonna be like, oh, well, Jerry's going back to that area. So I never considered me and you really that close. We only saw each other because right after I got hired on, we changed teams. We were on the same team, so that means we basically would have had meetings and stuff together. But we only had a couple of them together before our team split.
Right.
And then eventually I went back to the other side of the state, and the only time we saw each other were in our,
unit meetings.
Yeah, they called them unit meetings, but it was our two teams that would come together.
Yeah, but at the same time, you said you didn't feel like we were that close, even though whenever we first met, we kind of had some decent conversations about like your situation that you were in.
Right, and you told me a lot. You gave me a lot of insight in life.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I just came off the breakup we were talking about, and I was dealing with it my way. And you're trying to talk to me, but I was too stupid to listen. There's no possible way I was going to listen to anything that anybody said. At 21 years old, and we did have some good conversations. But what I meant is. Compared to the way we are now talking every day, we didn't have any of that. So we only talked at unit meetings, and it was funny that you said smart ass earlier because that's what I always thought of you. Because you always said you put your opinion out there.
Well, that's a little bit. Honestly, that's probably a little bit of nervousness, and it probably just comes off as smart.
Right, and that's
people take me entirely the wrong way.
Yeah, people would ask me about it because they knew that I started around the same time. We rode together and things like that. And I'd be like, that's just Jerry. He's just telling you his opinion. He's not trying to be a smart ass about it. He's just very knowledgeable about these things and wants to fill you into certain things.
Well, and some people just don't like that, and I get it. Because I always say my number one bit of advice to everyone is the worst thing that you can do is give unsolicited advice. I absolutely hate it. It's one of my biggest pet peeves, unsolicited advice.
So when somebody does that, you're going to come back with what your knowledge about it is what you're saying.
Well, no. I mean, I'll just tell them I didn't ask for their opinion.
Oh, okay.
But with that being said, I love giving my.
Once again, in a business,
I like giving my opinion.
Yeah, in a business setting, I feel like when you get the unsolicited advice, you definitely make sure that everybody knows that you're a smart guy and that this is your opinion and your take on it. Right. Which some people find beneficial, and some of the more old school people probably shunned away from.
Well, yeah, probably so. People find me can be pretty harsh. Right. But that's never my intentions. Right. I never malicious.
But obviously, with your position now. And being a respected person that a lot of people call and talk to, like myself.
Well, that's a stretch. A respected person. I really appreciate that you think of me that way, but that's a pretty big stretch.
So we kind of went through, let's call them the dark years, where we didn't communicate. I would say it was probably 4 or 5 years there for a 4 or 5 year stretch.
Yeah, probably
and I had been going down and working storms and stuff routinely. I don't know if you were at that point in time, but we kind of got put.
Yeah, I'd worked Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Kentucky.
Right. So we just were working probably the same storms. We were just at different places, but we just so happened to be in Tennessee at the same time at the same storm.
Was that Kingsport was our first one?
Yes.
Together? Really?
I think so.
Think of another time. Before. Maybe not.
Because I went down there with, I'm not going to say any other names, but I was down there with a different person. Yeah. And before, I had been down there probably 6 months or a year before near Bristol.
Okay.
And so it was really close. And so we kind of got brought back together at Kingsport. And once again, it's
Memphis.
Yeah, but to me, the moment that I think we became really good friends and it kind of took our friendship to the next level. I don't know if it's the same for you. It could be something completely different. But we were doing movie quotes, and I remember walking up to you. I had just watched The Dark Knight Rises, and I put my hand on your shoulder and I asked you if you felt in charge. Yeah, and so you had watched the movie the night before as well. And so at that point in time, we started off on like a 3 or 4 day tangent and just talking about movie quotes.
I think that had to just be to kill the time, because that was such a long. Those are long days.
Right,
those
absolutely.
Long days.
But I also feel like that it brought us closer because once again, it had something in common.
Yeah.
And I talked about this at a retirement party not too long ago.
Yeah.
But it was probably the second or third day of it, and we had a little bit of time before people showed up. I believe it was a Sunday, so they blocked some time out for people to go to church.
Yeah.
And so we had got there earlier, and we were throwing around a football. And
that's right. Yeah.
A team manager had walked up, and I was throwing, and I was doing stupid stuff, And we started talking about athletics, and I made the Napoleon Dynamite comment that I could throw a football over the mountains, and he said, "Really?"
I said, "Yeah, would have put me in. I would have made state."
And I said, "If Coach had put me in, we would have took state." And which is of course the Napoleon Dynamite line.
Right.
And I remember him walking away, and I couldn't let it. I couldn't go back on it. It was just too good.
Yeah.
I just had to let it mellow in there. And I remember Jerry coming up, "All right, man, are you sure that you want to do something like that with a team manager?" And I said, "He'll never be my boss." And like literally 2 weeks later, he was my boss.
He was your boss.
But he was around quite a bit, and I ended up telling him it was of course a movie line. And he said he actually went out and sought that movie to watch.
Did he
that.
really?
Yes.
Oh, that is awesome. That is good to know.
But that's where I really feel like our friendship kind of went to the next level.
It did go to the next level there. Although I will back up a little bit here. Whenever you first started having little ones, I think that's when we really connected as well, because you were almost in this identical, similar situation.
Yeah, timeline-wise.
Timeline-wise, as far as your age, the time that you get the kids.
So I got married at about the same time as well.
Pretty young, yeah. And I tried to give you advice at that time.
I was a couple years ahead of you getting married, but I had already had a child at that point.
Correct, yeah. So I'd say that would probably be our first step, and I felt pretty connected with like a kinship there.
Yeah, but it was probably once every couple months talking on the phone, something
Correct.
like that. Yeah,
correct. Yeah,
and
yeah.
Really, like I said, when we started going down there, and we spent basically 2 weeks of seeing each other for 12 hours.
Which was supposed to be 5 days, and it turned into 2 weeks.
But that's a rarity, because I'm on call for Florida right now, and I'm gonna have to go down there for what they say is 30 to 45 days.
Right.
But that may end up being 12. So most of the time, when the company puts out a date, it's usually before that. I feel like that they're giving you worst case scenario, but I think that there was a whole lot more damage in that.
It's going to be pretty bad. It's going to be pretty bad down there if and when you go.
If and when.
If and when.
At this point, not going, but
fingers crossed that you get to go.
David has my work phone. He probably knows before I go if I get called up to go now.
Nice, sweet.
But yeah, so we started being really good friends. We spent we were working. It's 6 days a week now, but we were working 7 days a week at that point. We worked 14 days straight, basically. And towards the end, it actually dwindled off to where we had enough time to talk and hang out, at the site. But before that, we were just getting hammered, and you were over there talking like little Dave while I'm trying to write up a car, and all these things. So, but I really feel like going out to dinner and hanging out by the pool and all those things, I got to know you even better than I already did, and I feel like it kind of took everything to the next level.
Yep.
And we started talking on the phone more and more often, and you're really the catalyst of what got me started into podcast and kind of knowing the differences that it made in my my life personally and other people's lives. So and you had talked about it for a long time.
Well, yeah, and I think me discovering some podcast, it allowed me to open up avenues of my mind that I didn't think were possible, because I got to hear other ideas and other philosophies and other thought patterns. It was really eye-opening. And whenever I seen something like that, I wanted to share it, and I wanted to share that with people I knew, people I cared about, like to help them out.
Right.
And I think that
So was the Rogan podcast the first one that you started listening to?
I pretty much started listening to the Rogan podcast, and then it's just kind of branched off to there. from other guests that he's had on throughout the years.
Because I had followed you into talk radio at that point, and I was listening to talk radio, and I got so bored of it. It was the same stuff over and over again, and I went from there into like books on CD because we drive some.
Yeah, I remember us talking about that. Yes.
And I have just a stack full of books, but there's only so many books you can listen to. So many discs you can pop in before you get bored, and you really need just to change of pace. And so I finally gave in. I really think that you probably talked to me about it for about a year.
Probably so.
I think you talked to me.
At this time, I was letting you know like what my favorite episodes were, so that way you wouldn't have to weed through them.
This was probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Probably so.
So you probably talked to me for about a year straight after we left the storm, and then finally about a year later, I started listening to it, and like, I would tell you I'm listening to this one. We would kind of talk about it, bounce ideas and theories back and forth with each other, and I don't think. You didn't really branch out a lot listening to other ones, did you?
Not immediately, not afterwards. But I would follow some of those people because those people didn't have podcasts themselves. They were guests on other people's podcasts. But every
person that comes on the Rogan podcast, he's like, you should do your own podcast. So,
yeah, he did at the time. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Back in the day, he
now
was like,
he knows it's cutting into his views. So
right. Now he doesn't tell anybody anymore. But I mean, he's inspired a lot of people to have podcasts. Probably you listen to some of them, but I kind of lost my point where I was going with that. I know, foggy fuzzy memory.
But yeah, so I branched.
What I was going to say is that those people didn't have. I know, my thought came back to me. Those people didn't have podcasts, but I would seek them out on social media with their web pages because I liked.
So like the Graham Hancocks and people like that.
The Graham Hancocks, the Jason Silvas. Jason Silva's a really good guy to follow for inspirational videos and quotes, and kind of helps put things into perspective for you. Graham Hancock for ancient civilizations, and then if you just want to cut back, Bill Burr is probably one of the funniest podcast to listen to, a ranter. I think I recommended him to you the other day because
I'm not ready for
he sits there for an hour and a half, and it's just him, a microphone, and he just rants and he's a funny guy. So you got to have a little bit of that in there, with a little bit of your
you definitely have to change your palate up with different things because even just listening to Rogan all the time, I'm finally like, okay, I need a break. I have to go do something else.
Right.
And so you really got me started in on all of these, and it kind of spun me out to where for a long time I was listening to the Graham Hancock ones, the 2 and 3 hour ones, and learning a lot of what I thought was the truth, or what he thinks is the truth, and just kind of experiencing new things, which I feel like gave me almost like an awakening to seek out more information. And then he was having fighters and nutritionists and bodybuilders and all these things that I followed up through my childhood that I was really attached to. And also, this was the same time that I was listening to the Lone Survivor book as well as the American Sniper book. And so that kind of, at that point in time, he had Jocko on, which is a Navy SEAL as well. And then he started his podcast on Joe's recommendation.
You love that podcast.
And well, it's very hard to listen to sometimes.
Yeah.
He talks about things that nobody else does, and brings it home like nobody else can.
Yeah.
And he will talk about how dark some things are, and he brings you to the light with them. Like, so a lot of the things that you're experiencing in your life is nothing compared to whatever he's reading about in these books from the past, or from his stories and experiences as a SEAL.
Yeah.
So nothing that you're experiencing is even close to that. But the principles that they use to learn are things that you can improve your life upon as well.
Right.
A lot of his speeches and stuff are around, how the military does it and how you can use it in your personal life, in your business life, whatever it may be. So I can only do Jocko every now and then.
Right. He's pretty he's intense.
That's an understatement.
He's very
monotone.
Intense.
Right up in the microphone.
Intense. Yeah.
You would never want to run into that guy in any scenario. I can't think of any unless I'm just having a beer with him, and maybe I would feel safe with this distance.
Like a buffer distance.
Yeah, but he's not a guy I would want to stand next to.
No.
But so you got the Rogan, and then I would do the Jockos as well. And a lot of Rogans can be serious, but nothing like Jockos. And it also kind of led me into the Fighter and the Kid, the MMA podcast, and I've always liked a lot of the things that Brian Callen's done. I haven't liked everything.
He's funny.
He's funny. He's a funny guy, and he's full of it. So it's hilarious to listen to. But I never really liked Brendan Schaub in his career. I never liked him
as a fighter.
Yeah, in the Ultimate Fighter House, I never really rooted for him. Maybe it's because he beat some of the guys that I loved growing up, and I held that against him. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna. But I feel like the perspective that he brought into the podcast game at that point in time kind of revolutionized it, and all these fighters are now doing them and stuff like that. But you know, it kind of opened the doors for me to be like, okay, well, I could do an MMA one too, from a perspective of a guy that has trained a little bit, has fought a couple times, but at the same time, I'm not a world class professional fighter that has, you know, this
wealth of experience under your belt.
Well, not only that, but like, there's certain guys that these guys won't pick against. They're like, oh, I train with this guy, I never pick against him. You know, was friends with this guy, I never pick against him. And I'm pretty much going to tell you my opinion, right or wrong. And I get a lot of flack for it sometimes, like the John Jones deal, but I ended up being right. John Jones tested positive again.
Yeah.
And we talked about that one as well, because you listened to that one.
But see, you said something about his character. And like you said, his character is totally separate from his fighting abilities.
Okay, here's my point to that.
Yep.
When your character,
and that goes with anybody, you know, people in football,
I can't separate
people in
that.
basketball.
I can't separate that, and here's why. Because his character, you got his fighting over here in a circle, and his character over here, and his character is so bad that it's starting to take away from his fighting, because he tested positive for cocaine,
right,
and he has all these legal incidents that are taken away from his fighting. So when it starts to blend over, I feel like that you can.
I get what you're saying there. But I'll never meet these people, so I separate, you know, how they are as a person versus how they perform on in an athletic contest. So whenever I look at somebody, I evaluate them. I don't take that into consideration. But like you said, unless it affects
and I feel like you have to tell people these full stories, because
I understand that.
Nobody knew where John Jones's head would be at when he came back, because he had just served a long suspension. He was coming off legal issues, off drug issues, off everything. He came back, fought one time, got suspended again for something that basically, it was the same thing Brock Lesnar tested for. I think it's called clomiphene, which basically is a post-cycle thing, or could be used to mask other agents. So him and Brock tested for the same thing. He claimed it was a tainted supplement, or something for men's
enhancement.
They call them dick pills. So you might as well not even fight it.
Right.
So something like a Viagra or whatever like that. But you know, somebody said, why would you put clomiphene, which is like $100 product, in a $4 gas station, you know, dick pill? Why would you do that? Like, it doesn't make any sense how that would get tainted. Well, so now, me trying to tell everybody these things, and because people could be making bets on it, you know, there's a lot of bets between friends that get serious. You know, these opinions can get serious when you're watching the fights together. Nobody wants to look stupid, but my goal is to tell the full story, and I don't feel like you can tell John Jones's story, or we were talking about Ezekiel Elliott, his story, without saying, yes, he's a fantastic talent, but you got to look at this, because this could affect the future.
Yeah,
and so
I see that.
Once again, I feel vindicated by this Tyrrell or however you say it, test of John Jones, which is something that I don't know if you listened to the last podcast. Probably not, because you're not a good friend.
I did.
Okay, so you heard me explain how it only stays in your body a certain amount of days, and then it's only got like a 2-day half-life, and it's only detectable in urine. So this is something that's very high level if you're trying to beat the system.
Gotcha.
And somebody that takes cocaine, you know, that's pretty much the king of the drugs here, short of meth maybe, but I wouldn't consider meth.
Yeah, that's probably the high.
You're an old pro. You went from alcohol to marijuana to pills to cocaine. You know, so you're the king here. So why would you be taking anything less in the supplement wise, or you know, why would you not be,
unless you're trying to
advanced,
enhance your performance?
So once again, my goal in all of these things is taking from the podcast that I listen to, that you got me started on, and trying to find my own way, because I don't feel like I don't feel like coming in here and trying to do it like Rogan, or coming in here trying to do it like Jocko, or, you know, kind of clowning like Fighter and the Kid. I don't feel like that can be beneficial to myself to make me stand out. And as well, when we start talking about your podcast, what I said before was, Jerry's got a personality that's different from all these people, and I feel like you've got to find your own way, and it wouldn't be my way without telling the truth and how I feel about their personal lives, because I truly think it affects people. You know, you look at people that it follows and haunts, and this is haunting John Jones, and it's getting to the point where it's haunting the sport. You know,
you think it's haunting the entire sport?
Absolutely. Yeah, he tested positive, and they were trying to make fights with Stipe, which is the heavyweight champion right now, currently, and with a goal of making Brock Lesnar next year. So you got a guy that just beat Daniel Cormier, who has never lost to anybody else at heavyweight or light heavyweight. He gets beat by John Jones. It taints him for life. I mean, even if he goes on to do miraculous things into his 40s, everybody's always going to say about this guy, you still got head kicked by John Jones and you got beat by decision the time before. So you got all of these guys that are affected that he's beat, and now you're messing with the UFC and with Stipe and Brock Lesnar, because Stipe could have been a huge matchup for the UFC, and the UFC's struggling. You know, I'll probably end up doing a podcast about it, but UFC 215 is tomorrow night, and they just had to scrap the main event because some guy was ill. So
who's the main event?
It was Demetrius Johnson versus Ray Borg, which isn't going to do any numbers regardless. I talked about that as well, and I won't get too far into it.
Right.
But it wasn't going to do near the numbers of a John Jones fight anyway. And now you have the main event scrap, so it wasn't going to do. It'd be lucky to do 100,000 pay-per-view buys, whereas John Jones versus Stipe could do 1 million. So you're messing with Stipe's money because he's going to get pay-per-view points. You're messing with his legacy, and then you also have this fight on the horizon with Brock Lesnar, would it might shatter all the pay-per-view numbers.
You say that it's not going to do those numbers, but do you think it's a saturation? Don't you think that plays a bit of a role in it?
Into UFC 215?
Just a saturation of MMA to where it's kind of on its bubble. Because somebody like myself who watched the Ultimate Fighter Season 1 and kind of got into MMA through that, and a lot of people did.
Right. Back
then with, Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner. That
Ken
brought
Shamrock was the coach.
Yeah, it brought a lot of people who really were on the fence about MMA or who didn't know about MMA, brought them into the fold.
I don't think so.
But now, now with UFC's every month,
right,
you can only have so many so many awesome mainline cards.
Right.
To where it's kind of like, all right, I'm not really even paying attention to that anymore. I've got to focus my attention elsewhere.
So, yes and no.
Yeah.
I talked about it last time. With the fight nights, there's so many of them, and they'll have one headlining fight that everybody cares about. And then there's a smorgasbord of people that, at this point in time, nobody is necessarily interested in. At least I'm not personally, and being a fan of the sport and having the certain people that I like to follow. And as far as saturating with the pay-per-views, they've pretty much still done the same number of pay-per-views that they've done for the years. Yeah. The problem is that there's not any stars out there that are making themselves different. See, John Jones is a star on the cusp who's returning off these long suspensions and things like that.
Right.
And he had the opportunity to fight Stipe, and one of them is going to come out there with star status like nobody's ever seen at that level.
Yeah.
At the heavier divisions. And so they can go, Stipe could go fight Brock, or John Jones could go fight Brock. And that's going to do all kinds of pay-per-view numbers. Right. But the problem is that outside of very few people, there's nobody that's making themselves a difference. If you put it into podcast context, everybody's doing the same thing like we were talking about. And they're not making themselves different. They're all the same.
They're not standing out.
And so you don't have people like Conor or Ronda or Brock.
And what sets those apart? I mean, because a lot of people at that level now are extremely talented. Their personality sets them apart. The way they sell themselves, the showmanship is going to set them apart from the next guy that's going to sell those fights.
Well, talking in context of Demetrius Johnson versus Ray Borg, Demetrius Johnson is about to set the record for title defenses, beating Anderson Silva. GSP's at 9, Anderson Silva's at 10, Demetrius Johnson's at 10. He could go to 11. The problem with him is he's an incredible talent, and he doesn't do those things. He doesn't, talk or anything like that. But he's an incredible talent that had the opportunity to go and make a super fight with TJ Dillashaw, which they offered him. They offered it to him. He said, no, it's not enough money. And so they're like, here's more money. And he's still like, no. And so basically he handpicked this fight. This is a guy it's like 11-2. I'm not even sure that he's ranked number 1.
Yeah.
I've never even personally seen this guy fight before. And so they're matching this up as the main event of the pay-per-view. And I really feel like it's the fault of the UFC for not saying, nope, you're fighting TJ Dillashaw, because TJ Dillashaw is the champion, or was the champion, a weight class above, and this is like a super fight in essence.
Yeah.
And this was his chance to set himself apart and to build his star moving forward, because I just beat TJ Dillashaw, a champ, a weight above me. That was my title defense record, number 11, and now I'm a big star. But instead of doing that, he's like, no, I don't want the money. I'm going to take this lesser-known guy and fight him and make sure I secure my record. And he's not taking any chances. You know, Conor McGregor came in and he took everything by storm. He talked crap about everybody. He took every fight they put in front of him. And that's the people that the fans are going to latch on to.
Right.
And so that's what you need more in the UFC. And these guys are shooting themselves in the foot. John Jones shooting himself in the foot. Demetrius Johnson shooting himself in the foot. You know, you got GSP coming back, and they're making.
Who knows how good he's going to be?
Exactly. He was a big star at the time. Before Conor, he was the one that was getting the biggest pay-per-view numbers. But something else the UFC does is they put all of their cards, so to speak, in one person, or all their eggs in one basket, like they did with Ronda. You know, I talked about.
They built her up. Yeah. Built her up. Built her up beyond her capabilities. She had the Hoist Gracie effect. Hoist Gracie came in at a time where not a lot of people knew Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah, I got what you're saying. Yeah.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
And he was able to defeat these guys on his skill and his talent level because they were so much above and beyond. While they were better strikers, better wrestlers, whatever else, he was able to make a difference in this. But the sport caught up to him quick, and he started getting beat. And that's the same thing that happened with Ronda. They bring in a women's division. They feed her all these opponents. She's beating them because she's more skilled in judo. She starts thinking she's a striker. And the next thing you know, the sport's caught up with her, and she's getting blasted.
Yeah.
But at this time, the UFC put every card, I mean, everything. Ronda was everywhere. And they weren't building anybody else up other than Conor. Now, Ronda's gone. She's probably retired. I don't see her ever fighting again unless she needs money.
Yeah.
And then Conor's over here with the capability to go to boxing and make even more money than UFC can pay him. So now you have no stars. You have guys that are shooting themselves in the foot and not building themselves. So what do? You still have to go on. You still have to put the fight cards out there. But they're not pushing their weight around and saying, no, dude, you're our champion. You're under contract. You're going to fight this guy. This is going to make sense for you. It's going to make sense for him, and it's going to make sense for us.
The company, right?
And so they need to be doing these things, and instead of doing that, you know, they're letting this slip by them. They're letting these opportunities slip. So
right. Well, do you think that has anything to do with the UFC selling itself, the Fertitta brothers selling itself, and
the ironic part is
Dana White doesn't have as much say because he would you know he would be forceful as far as like enforce those contracts. Get more control, absolutely, yeah.
Well, probably, you know, the ironic part is that WME's in for it the ratings. They want to make the fights that make the most ratings, but the problem is they don't have any stars. And so they listen to the fans. They made GSP versus Bisping, which I think the fans wanted to see. I personally want to see it. I want to see GSP go up there, fight him one time, and then get the heck out of that division because he's too small and there's killers in that division. But I think that fight makes sense. Because Michael Bisping's a huge name, GSP's a huge name. All the other guys in the middleweight division, while they're super talented and have the capabilities to beat either one of them, they're not as well known names. And especially at this point in time, the UFC's going through this big stagnant period.
Right.
This is a way to build up, and you can fill that card in with other guys that people want to watch, and they may even not even know that they want to watch them.
Yeah.
That's the problem with Fight Night. They're putting a decent fight out there, but it's not enough to make me want to watch it and find out and learn about all these guys.
But it's free.
So is Bellator.
See now what?
But Bellator's free too, and they're putting out awesome cards.
You know, I've tossed around this idea, and I don't know. I've kind of not really even fleshed it out. But it would be nice to see, like the UFC do some kind of almost like kin to the NFL. And what I mean by that is kind of like have teams, fighters, playoffs. You know, the whole, kind of like the whole 9 yards, like a tournament style.
It's been tried before.
Right.
They had something called the IFL where legends coach them, and I mean, but it just wasn't successful. And even still, even if you have all that, you're gonna have guys that need to be champion, so you're having team formats.
Well, not to interrupt you, but just even like NASCAR. NASCAR has teams, but they also have individual racers. They race all season long, build up points. And then in those points, they have a playoff system. just kind of like that with like MMA. Just to have something, just like kind of bring it up to the like maybe the next level. Maybe it's a silly idea.
No, but what you're saying already exists because there are fight teams and all these guys train in the same place.
With the UFC and that caliber of fighter.
I don't know how that you would ever bring that together.
Yeah, it's almost like saying, oh hey, there's the CFL out there. Nobody wants to watch the CFL unless the NFL is not on.
I just think that the biggest thing with UFC is they need to try to cultivate talent, and they don't need to take people like Conor and people like Ronda and just set everybody else aside. They need to continue to cultivate this talent and maybe have someone that can give them advice to these other fighters, because there's a lot of fighters that, a fan or an agent or somebody that's hired in by the UFC could be like, hey man, why don't you try to do this? And that's kind of one of the interesting things about Brendan Schaub is that he can try to give advice to people,
Yeah.
He talked about trying to give advice to Nate Diaz after the Mayweather-McGregor fight, and it just didn't work out for him because some guys don't want to listen to it.
Right.
And so you really need somebody like that in the sport that can give them advice, that can try to direct them, that's been there and done that before, and give them some type of vision for the future. And a lot of these guys don't like it, or they lack the vision to see above one fight ahead.
Well, why would the UFC want to do that if they can continue to cultivate talent and then toss them when they're no good? Like bring in talent, rise them up, build them up till they're no good anymore, toss them aside, and then just keep that cycle of people coming in.
I feel like
there's always going to be the next guy who wants to be the star, who wants to be the champion. There's always going to be that guy.
Right. One of the biggest problems, you grew up in the 90s. I grew up in the 90s. You're obviously older than me, but wrestling was huge back then.
Yeah. Well, so, my wrestling and your wrestling are still two different wrestlings. I was Jerry Lawler, Fabulous Ones, Desperate. You were more like The Rock and
Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan.
It comes back to this analogy. Yeah. You had WCW and WWF, and they were competing against each other.
Right.
It brought it to the next level. WCW was basically taking all of WWF's higher paid talent or
siphon them off.
Underappreciated talent.
Yeah.
And they were taking them and they were building them and they were running with what the WWF has already done. So now you got Bellator and UFC.
Right, and Bellator is doing that same thing.
Yes,
taking some of that top talent, taking some of those names.
Right.
To get viewers, absolutely.
And so the UFC is kind of like in the WWF's position right now, where they don't necessarily have a giant star, and Bellator is continuing to build these people, and they're putting out better fight cards for the most part on a consistent basis as far as the free ones go. Obviously, UFC with the pay-per-views, like the one that they put out in July with Jones and Cormier, that's going to be obviously better than anything that Bellator can put out.
Right.
However, you're getting to the point where Bellator's really starting to cultivate these stars and build them, but at the same time, they're still building their younger talent, and they're still signing people and developing them. And so you're asking why not just shoot out the ones that kind of fade away, because eventually you're going to get to the point where you have no stars like they have right now.
Well, they'll get to the point to where if they become a real threat, the UFC will absorb them like they have everybody else. Just kind of like the NBA absorbed the ABA.
But there was a time in the WWF eventually absorbed WCW. Everybody knows that. But there was a time where WCW was kicking the butt of the WWF in ratings. And so,
but WWF still had more money where they can absorb it.
Well, no, WCW had Ted Turner backing them, like he said. And so he wanted to put WWF out of business. The only problem is they couldn't find anybody with sense to run the WCW that could see the future and can understand that they have to sustain this. And so they eventually got absorbed by the WWF. WCW had amazing talent, and they had a bunch of talent that they developed. But instead of continuing to cultivate that and trying to take over these bigger stars, they just kind of let those guys walk away to WWF, which eventually spelled the downfall of WCW because all these guys went to WWF and were stars. So somebody's got to find a happy medium here. Somebody's got to find an ability to develop these huge stars like Conor and Ronda and Brock and whoever else you want to throw out there. And Bellator hasn't necessarily found the ability to do that. They're kind of running with the older stars. But the problem is that these stars are going to take over the UFCs if the UFC can't figure out a way to harness this and to be able to use it.
But what's to stop for Bellator developing that talent, cultivating that talent? When that talent actually gets good, UFC offers them more money, signs them to a contract, and steals them over.
UFC's backed by WME, and I don't remember. Maybe David can look it up. There's a company that backs Bellator as well that has a lot of money. Yeah. So if they're smart, they can continue to harness these people. And a lot of their champions have got up to the point where they need to resign or need to leave.
Right.
And in both sides, and some guys have went to Bellator, some guys have went to UFC, some guys have stayed. So it's just a matter of basically positioning yourself in this game of chess to outflank your opponent.
Your opponent, right.
And so Bellator's got a lot of really talented people right now. And, they're a little bit more recognizable to somebody that may be or watching the free fights only. If you're talking about pay-per-views, once again, the UFC blows that away.
Yeah.
But as far as talking free versus free, Bellator's getting to the point where they're contending, in my opinion. Viacom. So they got that Viacom money backing them, and then you got the WME money backing them on the other side, and it's literally, to me, it's like wrestling.
Yeah, doesn't Viacom.
All they need is GSP to leave UFC, go to Bellator, and turn heel like Hulk Hogan did, and
then it's all over with.
Yeah. So, kind of stepping away from that,
yeah,
and progressing in our friendship. And before we start talking about fantasy football, which is eventually what we're going to finish on,
sure.
I just wanted to kind of talk about the time that I took you hunting, because that was something that was an interesting experience for me.
Yeah.
So once again, as we've kind of stated, Jerry grew up in more of an urban environment, and I grew up in more of a country life.
Right.
However, I didn't necessarily live like that until I was later because of sports and everything like that.
Yeah.
But I progressed to the point where I was starting to hunt, and I talked with you about it, and even sold you a bow, which you're probably not shooting and practicing with.
Not yet.
Rook.
I'm telling you. I'm getting there.
It was just something really cool, and I've had the chance. David, I've taken him hunting, and it's something that I want to spread as well. It's kind of like we're talking about the UFC. You gotta bring new blood in, or it's gonna go away. And so, just an interesting experience. I felt like you came pretty prepared. I felt like you had boots and everything, right?
Oh yeah. I was ready to go.
But it was just cool to take somebody for the first time that had never been around mainly firearms or anything at that point, right?
No, I mean I'd shot guns and stuff before, but I'd never actually been in a hunting.
So this was like October, right?
Yeah.
And when we went for muzzle loading. Mm-hmm. And always take a Predator rifle and my muzzleloader. I was hoping that we would get some type of action. I don't think we had anything.
We didn't get anything.
We didn't see a turkey or anything.
No.
And that's very rare. Usually I see something.
Did we? There wasn't even a doe, was there?
I don't think so. I
don't think so.
And see, around the same time that I took you is when I started taking my brother-in-law as well, and we actually got to see coyotes.
Now that was just your third year of hunting when I went with you.
It was last year, so fourth.
Fourth year, okay.
I'm going to my fifth year.
Okay. Yeah, it was kind of. I mean, it was a fun experience getting up that early and getting out there and seeing. But
yeah,
too bad we didn't see anything.
My family, growing up, my close family wasn't really interested in hunting, and now that I'm doing it, I built a big blind. I talked about it before.
I know, it was nice.
And I like to have people in there because I like to have a good time. I like to be able to move around. I like to talk. I like to share the experiences with people. And I'm sure that some of the purists will be like, "Oh,
you're in a blind.
You're in a blind. You're not in a tree stand with a bow, and all stuff." But
that defeats even that's not even a purist. A purist would be tracking the deer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But I posted something the other day. It was a picture of Bobby with all of his friends, and they were.
I seen that. Yeah. Old school.
Thing.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of been my goal all along with all of this stuff is to develop a core group of people to be able to go out and enjoy these experiences together.
Yeah.
Because even though we didn't see anything, I feel like we had a lot of fun. You kind of got out of your comfort zone a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I shared what little knowledge I had with you and hoping to kind of pass the bug along to you.
Yeah.
But, whether that works out, whether you start shooting that bow or not, I don't know.
Well, I've got it, and I plan on getting it sized because it's still not, the draw weight and everything. So I don't have it yet, but I did take the first step, and I've got it in my possession.
You got it in your possession. It's probably in the same place that I saw it the day.
No, absolutely not.
We saw two deer as you come off of whatever the main road is, and you're making a circle around to get to Shelbyville Road.
Yeah.
There's like a big open field that's mowed.
Yeah.
Saw a ton of deer in that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
all day, I'm sure.
Maybe you need it looked like Bucks to me.
Far Edge.
Is that
There
right?
was at least 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think that I think it was still like a bachelor group of Bucks.
Isn't it amazing?
That are huge does.
Isn't it amazing that you can still see deer in the heart of the city like that? Like with very, very little
They don't need much.
woods around. That's
They
what I'm
don't need
saying.
much.
Yeah. I think it's pretty amazing to be in the
Coyotes are even more. Coyotes, you're liable to see a coyote right here.
I hope I don't see a coyote.
But no, yanking one of your little dogs out of the backyard.
I don't know.
Interrupting our podcast
I know.
over there.
That dog will give that coyote a fight.
Maybe the big one. Maybe not one of the little ones.
I don't know. I think the little one probably take it on.
He's scrappy, bro.
He's scrappy.
He's got a lot of potential.
You've seen Scrappy, dude.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that was really interesting
Yeah.
experience for me. I wouldn't trade it for seeing
and
deer.
I like that. I like that because you're sharing your interest with me. I'm sharing my interest with you, and
It's hard to get people to do it.
It is because people are stuck in their, and I don't want to say stuck, but they're stuck in their life and their routine, and it's just hard to pry
get them out of that bubble.
It's hard to pry them away from that. And
For sure.
It's hard. It's hard for me because it's their comfort zone. They don't want to get out of their comfort zone. They like doing this on a certain day, and they just don't want. They don't want to.
Yeah. I mean, I just sold my boat, which you're aware of.
Oh, you did? I did. No, you didn't tell me. So much for talking every day.
I sold it last week, so a week ago.
Awesome.
So I sold that, but when I bought it, I had all these visions in my mind of, my families want to go, my friends is going to want to go, and most of the time I was just out there at 5 o'clock in the morning, freezing my butt off, watching a boat by
myself. There you go. It's a valuable lesson you learned. Don't ever do anything very much. Do it for yourself, and then.
But I feel like that mindset and that mentality prevents you from breaking those barriers and being able to spread that positivity or that activity.
Well, no, I don't necessarily agree with that because I don't think that. I think buying or not necessarily buying, but doing something, thinking others will come along with you, or you can share that experience with them. I think that could be a detriment because you would be let down by those people who don't. So when I say do something do it for yourself, it's not being selfish,
right?
But follow your interest, and if you're passionate about it and you're interested in it enough, people will then follow.
Yeah.
It may not be immediate, but it'll come.
I've definitely been let down a lot, but at the same time, I don't let it deter me. I just try to continue to plod forward, and at this point, with a lot of things that I do in life, I've always kind of used always used the situation. I can take people and I can show them the door, but I can't walk through it for them.
Right.
And so that's kind of something I've lived by in life, trying to take people to do these new things,
right? To
have the potential to enjoy these experiences as a group. I mean, eventually, hopefully, travel and do all these things, which I feel like, especially coming from sports, you always kind of seek to have that brotherhood back. Of everybody together and going on the road and traveling, and because those experiences, even though I'm 30, you're like 50. You didn't even say anything. Come on, man.
No, I'm just gonna roll my eyes.
You gotta jab back.
No, I'm only 20. I'm 29. So.
Yeah, 29.
I look 29.
But going out on the road and enjoying those experiences and getting yourself out of that comfort zone and just brings you closer together, just like the storm did for us.
This is true.
Getting out, and that wasn't even a fun activity. It was fun at times.
We made it fun.
But there's a lot of grueling days. But what I'm saying is, there's so many opportunities to do this, and I'm just getting to the point where I'm not let down because I'm just trying to take these people to there. I'm giving them the option, and whether they take it or not is not up to me.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, around the same time as we went hunting, actually a little bit before, we started playing in a fantasy football league together.
Oh yeah.
We had played in the year before. Right. It was my league. It was just a draft.
I introduced you to Dynasty.
Yes,
Dynasty for the first time.
To Dynasty.
Yeah, it was. I think overall, I think it was a good experience for you. Even though you kind of bowed out at the end, but that's okay. That's all right.
So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But what I was going to say was I felt like it brought us closer because we were always talking about what was going on in the league activity and things like that. And I had never been in a Dynasty league. I didn't really have a lot of interest in it, but when I played it, obviously understood the importance of what I was doing, and I feel like I had built a Dynasty team. And it was stripped away from me.
That's up for debate.
So
whether or not you built that team was up for debate.
Oh.
Now, if you had wait a minute, if you had stayed in it this year, like I encouraged you to, then you could have claimed the moniker of building your.
I didn't want to
Dynasty.
blow up another league for you.
You wouldn't have blown up another league because we would have secured enough money from you to where you wouldn't have left.
Okay, so but I was the catalyst to putting that in place. But see, I come in, I go undefeated in the regular season, and everybody wants to quit. So I didn't want to blow up.
No, that was not why everybody wanted to quit. There was actually some people that left the league, and we couldn't replace those people. So the league did implode. We still do have a core group of people in our league, and I was hoping that you were going to be one of those.
Yeah.
But you have other things going on.
Yeah, and we joke about it back and forth, but I do regret not doing it. However, and seeing the amount of time that things like the podcast or the hunting season or whatever may take, it's really hard for me to find the time to do it. But I do regret it. Me and David talked about it. David's got a league right now. There's a couple people that need to be shown the door on that one, and hopefully we can maybe trim it down to 8 teams and start our own dynasty league. And so I have understood the importance of, but we have 2 different
philosophies.
That's a good word.
Well, I wouldn't say 2 different. We have multiple different philosophies when it comes to fantasy.
Sometimes they align, but other times
very rarely.
I don't know. We were talking about your draft this year and how remarkably close it was.
Well, but right off the bat, what I was building my foundation on, you totally did not agree with.
Not at all.
But we'll see how it pans out.
Yeah, and we will, and I'll get to tell you I told you so. But I mean, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it.
I understand. I appreciate that.
But so, let's talk a little bit more about it. So I come in. 2 teams have basically dissolved, and we have a redraft amongst 2
before
teams.
you even came in, we had to decide how. No, actually, just one team. It was just one team that dissolved.
But another team made the decision to.
I get to that. Yeah, one team dissolved, so we had to figure out how. And this person had won the championship the year before.
Right.
We didn't want somebody walking in, just paying an entry fee, giving them a championship team, so they can do it all over again. So we come up with the idea of if anybody wants to throw their team back in the pot,
right?
Throw the team back in the pot and draft. It was a good idea
on paper.
Until you get somebody who need to be shown the door in that draft with you who didn't know what they were doing pretty much.
I guess
you soaked up all the talent out of that 2-person draft. So if you say you want to build a dynasty among 8, wait a minute, let me finish. Among 8 people with 2 teams, that's kind of hard. And I know you're saying that you traded here, you traded there, and you built your team up, and that's true. You did make some moves. But you also had
the most moves in the league.
You had all the pieces there to acquire talent.
But
you didn't.
At the same time, I was still making these draft picks.
You made one draft. You had one draft.
I know, but I still had to make them. I could have been I could have not been very smart about
Michael Thomas. I think you picked up.
No, you're right. I think Michael Thomas was the rookie draft. That wasn't the same draft.
Oh, you're talking about, okay, back on the two-party draft. Yeah. Well, you had somebody that really didn't know what they were doing.
Right. And I didn't draft. I think I only drafted maybe 3 rookies.
Out of that, yeah.
But Michael Thomas was my first pick.
Yep.
Which I had last pick on that.
Right. So you go through the season, you soak up all the talent, you make moves, acquire more talent, and you trade off some good pieces at the time that was a good that was good moves.
Like Adrian Peterson.
Like Adrian Peterson was the best move you made because he didn't even play that year.
But I don't think I retained any, really maybe 4 or 5 players off that initial draft.
I'd have to go back and look.
You could.
I could, but I'd take too much time, and I'm probably not going to. But we can still talk about it.
But yeah, I mean, actually, one of the first trades I made was I traded for Carson Palmer with you, and then I turned Carson Palmer into Tom Brady later on.
That's true, you did. Yeah, you did.
So I made a lot of these moves. That's
I made a trade for your first round draft pick for next year, and the league dissolved, so I didn't get anything out of that trade.
That sucked.
It
was pretty beneficial to me though, because I got Tom Brady.
All beneficial to you.
Yeah, because I mean, let's be honest. I plastered you those 2 regular season games
without a doubt.
Plastered,
but without a doubt, you plastered everybody by 20 points or more.
Yeah. And then
without a doubt,
and then we get to the playoffs, and David Johnson's hurt, and I decide because of Cook's performances to put him on the bench. But see, and David, have you ever played in a league that didn't have more than a 1 week playoff? It's always been 2 weeks for you, right?
Yeah, all 2 weeks.
So, they did a 1 week playoff, and so this allowed Jerry to sneak in with his craftiness and ruin my perfect season, like the Giants with the David Tyree against the helmet catch.
Well, you say ruin. I don't see it that way. I'm coming from a different perspective, whereas it wasn't even an underdog team. I had a solid team.
Oh, you had a very good team.
I had a very solid
second or
team.
third?
No, I was a 4 seed because you were
4
number
seed.
one.
Okay.
You were
So
number
it was
one.
14
so
playoff.
Yeah, 14 playoff. You know, one. It's just a one shot, just like in the real NFL. You shouldn't have to play 2 weeks. That is absurd.
Once
to
again,
have a 2 week playoff.
Difference of opinions.
Difference of opinion.
I mean, 90% of the ESPN leagues have a 2 week playoff, but those are all just crazy people.
Never have I played in a league that has had 2 weeks for a playoff.
We've had some real close playoffs that really needed the 2 weeks.
Right.
That's
what I told him.
Yeah.
I told him that I thought that the 2 weeks actually showed the better team because anybody
Absolutely,
could have.
it does. You're absolutely right. But who was the better team for that day?
Oh, yours.
Thank you.
But once again, I made stupid decisions. That was my fault. I shot myself in the foot. I John Jones myself.
All because of Brandon Cooks?
Putting Brandon Cooks.
He scored like 30 that week,
34,
probably.
38.
Of course he did. And I beat
lost
you by like
6.
Was it 6? Yeah, I don't even remember. That's how memorable it was. I know that I just beat you. That's all that mattered to me. I don't remember
I
the
think
details.
I don't remember who the. I really don't remember who the nail in the coffin was, but I know it was another receiver that it might have been Michael Thomas.
That you had put in?
Yeah, I put Michael Thomas in over Brandon Cooks because he had been playing so much better, and I think Michael Thomas scored 10, and Cooks scored 34, 38, something like that.
Well, you know, that decision, you drafted Michael Thomas and you being so high on him last year afforded me to
but Michael Thomas
take kindly to him, and I drafted him on my team this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know the angle you were going with it.
Oh yeah. No, I'm saying I take you're.
I tried to tell you.
Big, strong wide
Fast.
receivers. Absolutely, big, strong, and fast.
It wouldn't matter who he had thrown to him.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
I mean, Brandon Marshall has had a bunch of hodgepodge of quarterbacks, and he's still.
That surprised me last year. How good of a year he had last year.
Who did he play for last year? The Jets?
The Jets.
Yeah, but he had Ryan Fitzpatrick. You know Ryan Fitzpatrick's just going he's going to circle out, do the Eli Manning circle, and just launch it. And Brandon Marshall's like, I want to be big.
Jump ball, yeah.
I want to be big here.
But usually the Jets are where people go to live out their, pre-retirement years before they actually retire.
It's rough right now for them.
Very rough. They are 1,000 to 1 to win the Super Bowl. Nobody's ever had odds on them.
What they ought to do is they ought to make the last 2 teams play. Like, so you have like the Jets and the Browns for like
for what, like
bottom,
the toilet bowl?
Yeah, toilet bowl. Something.
Yeah, like
that would just be
doing
interesting.
in
Who's actually
football?
the worst of the worst?
That would be.
Then
you
have teams throwing it to get the first round, like the Suck for Luck program that the Colts did a couple years ago. You'd have teams throwing it.
Yeah, they sucked for luck.
And it worked out. Well, kind of worked out.
Well, it's still up in the air. Still up in the air.
I don't know if he's healthy.
He's not going to play week 1, maybe not even week 2.
I'd say he's probably going to come back week 3 or 4.
He's not even throwing a football yet. He had the same surgery as Cam Newton.
We talked about this though.
Yeah.
Cam Newton relies upon his legs more.
True.
You have one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league who's got a cannon who relies on his arm. It's not necessarily his legs. And so I just think they're being overly protective, personally.
Now, I look at Andrew Luck and
if he's not throwing a Nerf football in his living room right now as we speak, then I'm crazy. I guarantee he's throwing.
He's not throwing a ball in practice. I'll say that.
Right.
He may be behind closed doors.
They could be writing you some wolf tickets here and screwing with you and playing a little. He could be doing anything on the side.
I hope
so too.
Because I drafted him. He's on my team. He's on my dynasty league.
I got him late in David's league and started Tom Brady.
He should go. Oh, that's bad. You had a bad game last night. Yeah, but
Madden curse.
Madden curse.
I knew I should trade him, but I actually offered a certain individual who has made those horrible decisions we talked about.
Yeah.
I offered him. I thought maybe I could sneak in too, and offered him like Andrew Luck or Tom Brady for David Johnson. Wasn't sniffing it.
No way.
Bro, you heard the trades.
No way.
We're talking about he dropped a starting running back for the 3rd string tight end for the Browns, and you think that. You don't think I could snake away?
Well, don't you?
It wasn't like I was robbing him.
What were we talking about? People being bad in nature, like people being horrible. That's a horrible thing to do. You know that you're screwing the guy out.
But
of
it's
that, out of
it's
that
not
play.
necessarily for our league because the quarterback scores the most points in our league. So even though
Quarterback scores the most points in every league.
right, but it's not a dynasty. You're thinking of dynasty.
No, I'm
terms.
not. I'm just thinking regular. We just had a redraft.
Well, at this
Did I
point
show
in
you
time-
I show you my redraft, and this is another philosophy that we differ on. Quarterbacks, once you get past the first two, it doesn't matter who you got. They're all within 5 to 7 points.
So
and you can, but theoretically, you can make that up in other tiers with a running back
Perhaps.
tier, tight end tier, wide receiver tier. If you get those upper tiers there, you don't have to worry about the quarterback. I guarantee you, if we were in a league and I didn't draft a quarterback, I could pick up a quarterback off the waiver wire every week and still be competitive. That's how I feel about the quarterback position. I could what do they call it? I could stream that position.
And we'll just go ahead and dive into this. Here's my philosophy: the quarterback can bail you out for a lot of other positions because even what you're talking about, top 10 quarterback, he's going to score over 100 points more than the next position player.
But if you look at it from an overall perspective, your job from week to week is win.
Right.
Each week, win. Put your best
But how are you gonna get
players
the
in the
most
position.
points?
Putting the best players. Well, you can get the most points by gaining advantages in other tiers, in the running back tier, the wide receiver tier, the tight end tier, especially the tight end tier, because the tight end tier drops off so dramatically, and the running back tier drops off so dramatically. Not so much on the wide receivers.
Okay, so I'll tell my philosophy, but I want you to tell yours first. So when you're drafting a team, you tend, in my opinion, to go wide receiver, running back, quarterback.
In a dynasty format, yes. In a redraft league, totally different. Now, depending on your position of draft.
Okay, so tell your theories for both, because mine's the same for both.
Well, it depends. Like in a standard redraft, you have two running backs, two wide receivers, a tight end, and a quarterback. In my dynasty,
And a flex.
and a flex. In my dynasty, you start one from each of those positions, and then you have like 4 flex that you can mix and match. So I don't find as much value in the running back position because you only have to start one. I don't have to start 2. So in a standard, you have to start 2. So you need to snatch up those running backs so that you're not in the lower tier on your running back 2. Whereas in my dynasty, where you only start 1, I can just go wide receiver all the way down. If I miss that second tier running back, I can go wide. I can get two or three 1 or 2 tier wide receivers to fill those spots that are going to score the same, if not more points than like a tier 2 running back, tier 3 running back. So if I load up on in a redraft, I load up on running backs, and then wide receivers, and then tight end, then quarterback. That's exactly how I would draft in a redraft league. Longevity-wise for Dynasty, your wide receivers are they have longer careers, and you can count on them more often than you can a running back. So that's why I value the wide receiver position much more. That's why I went, in the position I fell. That's why I took Mike Evans over a running back, because David Johnson, Ezekiel Elliott, Le'Veon Bell, which I'm really, he's a good player, but I'm not a fan of because I just don't like the Steelers. But that's just me. I just have a bias about
Not only Steelers, but the fact that he's had off the field issues and injury issues.
Injury and off the field issues
That's
too
But he can
too
run
big.
and catch.
So can David Johnson.
This is true. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
David Johnson was, clearly the number one.
And who was the first on that train?
Well, David Johnson.
No, I mean, who was the first on the train of David Johnson? Because if you remember the year that you played in my league, which would have been 3 years ago, I went ahead and scooped up David Johnson, which worked out for me.
Right. Well, the guy who had your team before, he had David Johnson.
I'm not talking about the dynasty. I'm talking about the year before you played.
I get it. Yeah. But that was that year, because he drafted him that rookie year, and you picked him up his rookie year off the waiver wire, didn't you? Or did you actually draft him? I don't exactly remember. But anyhow.
Yeah, I don't think anybody drafted him.
It don't matter.
I don't think anybody drafted
But
him.
that's kind of my theory and my position on why I would take a quarterback late
Right.
in a redraft, because I got David Carr in like the 10th round, and then Carson Palmer, one of my lower, he was my backup. He's my backup quarterback. From a week-to-week basis, based on tier 2 of the quarterback position, I'm good. I'm sitting pretty.
Yeah. Are you finished? I don't want to interrupt you.
No, go right ahead. Yeah, I kind of laid out my positions between the two different ones.
For me, I would go quarterback, running back, wide receiver. And as far as your points, that's the people that typically average the most points per game and per year in that order. Mm-hmm. And quarterback, I agree with you to a certain extent, but I think that it goes beyond the first 2 or 3. I think that it probably goes to 5 to 7, because those guys are going to be averaging well over 100 points more a year, and especially for dynasty.
You're saying 5 to 7?
Probably. Yeah.
Saying 5 to 7 quarterbacks have
probably
100.
So.
You just made my point, kind of, because it's scarcity. There's no scarcity in the quarterback position.
So I'll let you talk the whole time. Now we're just going to play interruption.
Absolutely, go right ahead.
So in my opinion, it's either or, especially in a redraft, because you can kind of get sneaky picks and dynasty guys that you see something in that nobody else does. But in a redraft, as you call it, league, getting that quarterback early, because there's going to be somebody that they skip over, and you could have a really good backup. See, my point of view has always been have 2 or 3 quarterbacks, and I get people that I know that I can to interchange that every week are going to have 20 plus points, 25 to 30 in most leagues. And that's irreplaceable, because most running backs or wide receivers aren't going to get there. And also, by stacking those 2 or 3 up, you can take somebody that you may get at kind of a bargain, as you would say, and you can take that into trade bait. I was talking about getting Carson Palmer and then turning that into Tom Brady by packaging it together. Right. And I've typically done that every year. I've always drafted somebody that I thought was going to go through the roof, and then somebody else that I can kind of use as trade bait. Making notes.
Absolutely.
So and then running back, I feel like that last year really showed my philosophy the best on that, because we went over the top 10 and it was dominated as far as position players, wide receiver and running back, by the running back position. And you're talking about consistency. The consistency of a wide receiver is going to vary. You can have guys that come out and have a breakout season at wide receiver that may not be able to continue in it. And so if you're smart enough on the waiver wire, you can pick that person up and you can replace that for that 1-2 year run with that guy that you drafted probably way too high that might not be performing, like DeAndre Hopkins last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so for me, it's always the running back, because I know that they're going to get the ball, they're going to get their touches, and especially like as you say in a redraft league, you got to get those top tier guys, because you know that they're going to eat from week to week basis. But all these are kind of somewhat interchangeable. Like I took a wide receiver in the rookie draft, and I don't know, he was pretty much the guy that I wanted to take after all the research and everything that I've done.
Yeah.
So you obviously have to use it for situational, but if we're doing a redraft or if I'm coming into a dynasty league, that's where my thought process is going to be. Yeah. And I just the running back's always going to get their touches. With Brandon Cooks last year, I lived and died by him sometimes, because he would have it. Thank God that I loaded up, because we talked about it. I loaded up and I made trades to get. I had David Johnson. I had DeMarco Murray that nobody wanted. I traded for him.
I did, yeah. And you were on DeMarco Murray. I was not a fan.
Carlos Hyde.
He didn't do very well in Philadelphia, because they weren't using him correctly. Right. They were trying to go side to side. They weren't using him as a as a hammer that he is.
For me, and we've talked about this before, I played fantasy for probably 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
And last year was the first year that I did not win a championship. And I actually found out the other day, I didn't even know it, because I was so involved in our dynasty.
Yeah, you told me.
But I finished second in David's league last year. I had no idea.
And you had no idea.
But these philosophies have panned out pretty well for me. And, what works for me, in my mindset, I may see things in players that you don't necessarily see, like DeMarco Murray.
Yeah.
And you may see things in players that I don't see, because you've had some very good teams. And I think I won the year that you played in our league. And then we played together last year. Neither one of us won, but you did beat me in the playoffs.
I was in the champion. I made it to the championship game.
And you messed it up for the both of us.
Barely. Just barely.
And I don't even think
my team was riddled last year. It was
right.
It was a hospital.
It happens. I mean, once again, David Johnson, my best player outside of Tom Brady, gets hurt. And it's hard to recover from that.
So back on this quarterback.
See, I tried to mend the fences, and I tried to say what worked for you, because I don't feel like you can put everything under one umbrella.
You can't, because there's different formats. Now, whenever you're in a 2 quarterback system, absolutely soak up those quarterbacks. But you soak up quarterbacks in a 1 quarterback redraft league, you're wasting your pick.
Maybe you can turn it into stuff though.
You're wasting your pick.
And guess what?
But like I said, the scarcity is an issue. You just sit there and made that point by saying, top 7 guys. Okay, top 7 guys. So you normally play in a league with 10 people, sometimes 8, sometimes 12. Half the league or over half the league can get a good quarterback. It doesn't matter. So, but if you're talking about using those as trade bait, you would want to snatch up, tight ends, running backs. Use those as trade bait because the levels are not there.
I don't think you can ever get the value from those positions though. Nobody wants to give you what a tight end or what a running back's worth. Everybody wants to rob you. However, when you have an 8 or 10 team league, like you say, you have 2 elite quarterbacks. Number one, I know right off the bat when I see I'm playing you and you've taken a number 7 quarterback and I have a top 3, that's at least 10 points on you. Unless it's a situational matchup.
Like I said, I could have been floating the quarterback position like I was telling you I could do. I started Alex Smith last night. He scored like 30 or 40 points.
Right.
And I'm sure he's on.
But how often is that going to work out for you?
More often than you think.
I don't believe that. Because when I'm putting Brady and Luck out every week.
Invite me to a league. And I won't.
I did. I pantsed you for like 2 years.
Not this year. You didn't invite me to a league this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the past doesn't count.
The past doesn't count.
My philosophy.
Just to put my theory to work.
Because, you're talking about that one year that I won, that you came in and you started preaching these philosophies. You went Julio Jones and Des Bryant and all these things, and it didn't work out because I got injured. But I go Andrew Luck number 1. Everybody wants, and then I get T.Y. Hilton, and the next thing you know, that turns into a championship because I got a top 5 receiver really late that everybody else passed on because they went up and got these Julio Jones and Des Bryant, and one injury derails their whole season. Where they could have Andrew Luck at the top of their team producing 30 points every game.
I get your philosophy, but I'm not buying into it.
But let's backtrack because I wanted to make another point about the quarterback. You're talking about the trade bait. Here's where it comes into play and where it's invaluable. You have 5 through 7 guy. He blows his knee out. Okay. I have 2 elite quarterbacks. Okay. That I can get value for that because you need that. You want that. Yeah. You may feel like you can go out, especially with tight end. You're talking about tight end. You may feel like whatever position, you can go out to the waiver wire, especially in an 8-team league, and you can find a fill-in. But you can't find a fill-in for that quarterback because the top 10 are gone. Maybe the top 20 at that point.
Like I said, I could float a quarterback from 15 down and still be competitive.
Everybody in our redraft league has 2 quarterbacks, Jerry.
I get that. I understand.
So think about that. So you draft 1 quarterback, you fill in your team, your 1 quarterback gets hurt. Who are you going to go get?
Whenever I'm drafting this team, you're going to draft a quarterback in a backup. So you're still going to be.
But not everybody does that, and some people let it slip. Some people let it slip to those people that they're having to take flyers on.
We're not talking about some people. We're talking about you. We're talking about me.
Well, see,
or philosophies.
This is a secret. Nobody knows this.
Okay.
When I fill in my team, you've got a team, and sometimes even before I do, with defense especially, kicker especially, I'll draft another quarterback. So I'm always getting a second quarterback way before anybody else, but I get my pick that way.
Right.
So that's what allowed me to get Brady and Luck in the league that I'm in. And, I've got 2 elite quarterbacks where if Luck doesn't come back from injury, Brady should sustain. If Brady doesn't sustain and Luck's healthy, then I can put Luck in.
So as of right now, week 1 has started.
Yeah.
The game, the fantasy games some have been played.
Right.
New England, Kansas City played. Your elite quarterbacks that you have drafted.
Yeah.
One is hurt. Will not play maybe week 3 if we're lucky. and how good is he going to be? Week 1, your elite quarterback didn't score you maybe 10 points.
11. But here's the funny thing.
My point exactly. So the guy who has drafted a good running backs, good wide receivers, who took a flyer on Alex Smith, is kicking your tail in this week.
Right, but that's 1 week. That's
exactly.
The funny thing.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
But just listen to
your
me,
goal is to win week
right.
2 week. Your
Right.
goal is not to win a championship at the beginning of the season. You have to string these wins together.
I'm gonna tell you another secret. You ready?
Yeah.
Almost every league that I've ever played in that I can ever remember, especially David's league, I get the last pick every time.
Mm-hmm.
So these guys do get a chance to shine, but then they get film on them and they start to fade as the season goes on. Typically, I have enough research into my team that they get better. I've gotten beat, I swear to you, almost the first week every time, because these players like Kareem Hunt are going to come out there and they're going to have a 42-point game. Can he sustain that? I say no.
He cannot sustain a 42-point game. But if you watch that game, I watched it again this morning. I watched the film on it. That guy is quick.
He's got talent.
He's
there for
elusive.
sure. But that's
and he is
kind
powerful.
of beside the point because nobody took him that high anyway. But what I'm
They,
saying
no,
is,
they are now.
now.
Well, he's running. Well, I'm just saying before the beginning of the season.
Ware was hurt.
That was before Ware was hurt.
Yeah, he was. I got him in the 13th round of our.
Yeah,
maybe
so
even later.
Sneaky,
Maybe even
yeah.
later than that.
But I'm just telling you, from year to year,
Yeah.
doing it 8 years. Last year was the first year I didn't win any championship, and we're
why
talking
that?
about worst case scenario. I finished second because David Johnson got hurt.
Well, you didn't win because of me. That's why you didn't.
Oh
win.
yeah, but I'm talking about I played in 2 leagues
Yeah.
last year, and David
I
Johnson
understand.
got hurt in both, and I lost them both.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's a guy, and see, I went against my intuition, but
Right.
I had the 10th pick, and these guys in his league weren't smart enough to take David Johnson, so I got David Johnson 10th, and then I could turn that route around into a quarterback.
So you took.
So,
it was 10
yeah.
teams. So you were on the turn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost every year. I was the same place this year. I
Is
was
that right?
ninth.
Last pick is the best place to be.
I hate
I have
it.
my best
First
redraft
pick.
team.
I hate it.
Give me
Give me
the-
David Johnson
Give
all
me
day.
the
every
first
day.
pick all day long.
And you're not going to be able to steal. There's going to be somebody that stole somebody this year. See, I took Melvin Gordon 9th this year, and I hope that's this year still.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
And-
He's not necessarily. I mean, he might be a steal at that draft position, but I mean, he's definitely on everybody's radar.
yeah, but you're talking about somebody producing at number 9 that 8 other people have passed for.
Yeah.
Whoever it may be, Julio Jones. I don't know the list of people.
Also
and also, people started taking quarterbacks at like 4 or 5, and I panicked. And so I'm like, and then I turned that 11th pick into a quarterback.
That's one draft day mistake that I've made in the past.
Right.
That I did not try to do this week. Like whenever our run started. All right, I missed that run. I'm going on. I'm moving on to the next. On to the next position.
See, and I had in my mind all along that I wanted to get 2 running backs and then get a quarterback, and I panicked because Brady was still there and he was projected to be number 1.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, if you think about it, it's kind of a pretty good position, but I wish I could go back because Todd Gurley was still there. I wish I could have went Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley, and then try to get Dak Prescott and Luck later on, because Dak Prescott was the guy that was on my radar this year that
And
I
you
think
could
could have
have
a big
gotten
year.
him. You could have gotten Dak
messed up.
Prescott late.
I messed up because
Another point to my drafting a quarterback late. You could have got, like I said, Derek Carr late. I think he's going to have a great year.
But how many
Could have
times-
gotten Dak Prescott
how many
late.
times in those drafts have you had that guy on your list and somebody else in that league snaked him away from you?
Well, that happens quite a bit.
Yeah.
That happens quite a bit.
So
you got to know.
you
when-
have to be
you have to-
decisive and take them in the point that you think to, and sometimes you have to overdraft them.
Right. Sometimes you do in order to get it.
You got to take advantage of people sleeping on this player and then listen to the experts and taking these players.
Yeah.
Because like Le'Veon Bell went second and at least sometimes first probably in every league. And
He
there's no
definitely-
way I would draft that dude right now.
No.
With all of his off the field problems, with all of his injuries and not training, going through training
Right.
camp, there's no way.
Yeah. Well,
And so
Ezekiel.
I got James Conner.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now Ezekiel Elliott's going like in the second round of these drafts. This was before
And
the
he won the first
suspension.
round of ours.
Did he win the first round?
After
that's
suspension.
right. I remember you telling me that.
Because-
Yeah, after the suspension was
Because
announced,
my
he
dad's
went
like,
the first round.
nobody wants to train. I gotta get who I want to get. And I'm like, oh, we'll go with the wife beater then.
Well, I mean, that's a detriment to his team. I mean, he's gonna be
I
out.
should have got Dak.
Yeah.
That's the future. So we could banter back and forth about philosophies.
Absolutely.
I feel like everybody's got a good taste of it, and I feel like that everybody really truly has to make their own decisions. And I feel like if you do your research, you know your draft strategy going into it, you can make it work for you.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
That being said, this is kind of the first podcast I've obviously had somebody else in with a story to tell and with something that they
I don't know
had.
how good my story was, but
I think it was pretty good.
I appreciate that.
I think it was pretty good. So, but your goal is after our talking and everything like that, you've had it in works to do your own fantasy football dynasty.
We're gonna try. Me and my brother, we've been doing dynasty for this will be our 6th year now that we played strictly dynasty, and been playing fantasy football for probably close to 20 years. Just always found an interest, found a passionate, and so we're gonna try to do something with it. We haven't got it up off the ground. It might even get up off the ground probably mid-season, I'm thinking.
Right. But it's something, it's a dynasty thing to you all that you're going to prolong for a long period of time. So it's not necessarily something that you have to rush to do. You want to make sure that you do it right.
We're gonna try to put out some content throughout the year, and even some throughout the off season. With the off season is usually a dead season when you're in redraft, but in a dynasty league, player acquisitions, player trades, contracts, all those things kind of come into play on how you're going to shape your dynasty team.
Not only that, but from week to week, so many people play DraftKings and FanDuel and stuff like that.
That's a whole other different monster.
But a lot of your advice can be used for that week because you can talk about it.
Oh, absolutely. Because if you listen to a lot of podcasts or listen to or watch a lot of videos on people talking about fantasy football, they usually talk about situations or hey, this coach is here and he was with this player at this team and they did really well. Where I want to more focus on evaluating the actual talent of the player, and I think that's going to try to set us apart from anybody else.
And that was my next question. Like, we obviously can tell that you're passionate about it, that you have your own philosophies,
right?
And so that's how you plan on translating to make you different, because I feel like that's the most important part, and I feel like that your personality and kind of your outspokenness on your opinion, just like we went back and forth, that I feel like that's going to set you apart, because it may not be the same as everybody else.
It's definitely not going to be the same. It may be way off base. It may be right on. It may be spot on.
Right.
But
and I feel like that you're pretty good at evolving. Like you may not want to admit it sometimes, but like we talked about with the running backs last year, I'm like, go ahead and look at that top 10 list. And then
now I will say, I want to point this out, like, because I had preached wide receiver to you, and you're like running backs. I'm like, no, in our league, wide receivers are going to score you the most points. And last year, for the first time since 2013, that 3 of the top 5 average draft positions were running backs. Now that was just a resurgence, but prior to that, it'd been wide receiver. Like I was trying to preach to you, the turn had come. I didn't see the turn coming. You obviously constantly preached running backs, even though there was a wide receiver boom going on before the running backs made the turn.
But a lot of the leagues that I played in were non-PPR too.
Well, that makes a difference. That makes a big difference.
Makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of the way I was brought up into fantasy, is non-PPR, so it makes a big difference. So I had to learn that. But I feel like the league's evolving to the point now where you, like David said, he can catch passes too.
Yeah.
That you almost have to do that now. Otherwise, you're going to have to give up a committee, because there's going to be somebody that comes in second, third down that is taking passes.
Taking those carries and passes. You've got to be an all-around guy. Yeah. I don't know. I just lost my thread again.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But and you're also going to turn this into not only a website, but you're also going to do a podcast.
We're going to do video podcasts, put them out there, and hopefully we'll get some views, and hopefully we'll gain a following.
Yeah, for sure. I think without a doubt, it's a struggle, man. I mean,
even if we don't get a following, I'm going to be doing it regardless.
You got to grind.
That's fine. Me and my brother, who's gonna co-host it with me, we love doing it. We love talking about it.
Right.
Why not share it with people who may find it interesting?
And sooner or later, it's gonna catch on.
If it does, great. If it doesn't, I'm okay with it. I'm going to be doing something that I like to do.
I feel like that's Jerry's attitude, but from my perspective, I feel like that it will catch on as long as you continue to grind. Everything's a learning experience.
Right.
You know, I think it was our 4th podcast. We had audio issues.
Right.
You know, and we've had video issues in the past, and all these things.
That's what makes it.
And you got to continue to evolve with this, and change perspectives. And that would be my best advice to you. And I know that you'll do it because we've talked about it in the past. But just be authentic, and when you're wrong about something, admit it.
Oh, without a doubt.
And don't keep with the same mindset. Preaching your wide receivers and no quarterback.
Well, I only
got 2 minutes left on the.
Oh, okay.
So we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, that sounds good.
But I really appreciate it, Jerry.
Oh, no problem. I'm glad.
Go ahead and tell people where you're.
Well, we don't have a website yet, but you can follow me on Twitter at Dynasty King.
And that's what your website's going to be, right?
Dynasty Kings, Kings. At Dynasty King
and
JT.
hopefully you step over to Facebook and Instagram as well.
Eventually, when we get everything up and going, I'm sure we'll start to outlet everything to all the other social media sites.
Well, I'm really looking forward to it, man. And I'm hoping that I can come back on the podcast as well. And
I definitely want to have you on the podcast because I love the banter.
Moving forward with our podcast, we're going to continue to have people like Jerry on with unique perspectives and things that they're doing within their own lives as well.
Yep.
And be back with some MMA content as well. But we really appreciate you guys for listening, and we'll see you the next time.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks, buddy.
It's been awesome.